Hello everybody, just to give you a 3-minute warning, we're about to kick off at past, so quickly get yourself a cup of tea and we will see you in a minute. Okay, I hope everybody can hear us okay. We're going to kick off now. It's past, so I think there's a few people still joining, but the beauty of this sort of session is they are a slight delay, so they can actually rewind and catch up. So welcome, this is an introduction to visual impairment. My name's Mark Upton, and I'm going to introduce ourselves in a minute. I've also got Guy Lawful here. If you can say hello quickly, Guy. I think your mic might be on mute. But... Hello, Guy. Are you there?
Hello. I'm here. Hello, Mark. Hello, everybody else.
Brilliant. Thank you. Phew, that's a relief. We're both here. We're going to show you ourselves in a minute on screen and give you a proper introduction, but I'm just going to go through what we're going to be covering today and a few housekeeping things. So our main aim today is just to give you an overview of visual impairment, and that's going to be done through these various sort of topics here. So what is visual impairment and its effects, adaptations and equipment, communication and guiding, and further contacts and services across Oxfordshire. And then at the end there'll be a chance for a Q&A, and if you are familiar with Teams or not, at the top corner of your screen there should be a little box with a question mark in that will say Q&A. If you want to ask any questions throughout, do type them in there. We're going to have a set time at the end, but if you can type them throughout, that's absolutely fine. We are actually about 30 seconds ahead of you, so and if you are watching this with a slight delay, if you did rewind, then unfortunately we might not see your question, so do send them in. And yeah, so housekeeping. So like I said, questions can be asked throughout. A recording will be available afterwards, and I'll email that out and we'll put that up on YouTube. And they'll also, you have, as like I said, a chance to pause the event. So if you need to go and make a cup of tea, you can pause. But like I said, if you ask any questions, then you will need to, we won't see it basically. So you can email them to me afterwards. I think you all have my email address now. And yeah, so hopefully you'll all get something out of today. This is very different for us. We have done a webinar back in July, which was our sort of first attempt, and we've learned a bit from that, but we're more used to doing this physically in person. It's far more interactive in person. We do far more activities. We certainly have a go at guiding, a few blindfold activities, and we also try out some simulation spectacles, so you get an idea of what some of the visual impairment will look like. So this is a little bit different. Unfortunately, we can't make it so interactive with the sort of setup we have, but if you have any feedback on that, that would be really helpful afterwards. So yeah, here we go. So I'm going to now, hopefully, all being well, get Guy up on your screen. And Guy, if you can just say hello and tell us a little bit about who you are and your own visual impairment as well, if that's okay. Oh, I think, Guy, we've got no audio from you. I'll tell you what, Guy's obviously got a little bit of a technical issue there with his microphone. So whilst he's figuring that out, I will introduce myself. Sorry, Guy. So hello, everybody. If you can see the screen, you can see that we've both got some nice smiley daisies behind us, which is actually part of our OAB branding. But yes, my name is Mark Upton. I'm Client Services Manager here at Oxfordshire Association for the Blind. I'm visually impaired myself. I've been visually impaired since birth, and that vision has changed over the years. And I am also a long cane user, so which we'll look at a bit later. I've worked for OAB for about 6 years now, so 6 years, and previously I've been a part of, I was working for a charity in West Sussex, a very similar organisation. So I've got sort of over 11 years experience working with visually impaired people in various different ways, with different activities, different services. which we run at OAB, which we'll talk about later. But my sort of interests, I've got a lot of interest around accessibility, technology, and sort of helping people understand what visual impairment is, and some of the, breaking down some of those barriers and misconceptions that people have. So I'm going to, hopefully, Guy, are you on now? Nope. Okay, well, once Guy has got his self sorted and we've got a microphone back on, we will go through to Guy. Guy, if you can just shout when your microphone is back on, and then we will.
Okay.
Oh, is it working?
Which mics? Is that now working?
You're now on. Yeah. Do you want to? I'll get you back. So we're sort of running.
I'm having a problem here. Teams keeps resetting my input devices.
Okay. I'm now going to put. Oh. Okay. I think we're still losing you guys, so we'll. I think we'll have to crack on. Okay, so I'm just going to show a video now, so a little bit of chance for Guy to hopefully get his microphone sorted. And actually, Guy introduces himself a little bit in this video anyway, so here we go.
Oxfordshire Association for the Blind has changed my life, and I couldn't be happier.
Charity's done a great deal for me. They're terrific.
Without them, I don't think I would have got this far.
Oxfordshire Association for the Blind is the county charity for visually impaired people in Oxfordshire. It aims to enable visually impaired people to live as independently as possible.
It can be an isolating world if you've got sight loss, but meeting people who have it too makes you feel that you're not alone.
I've been registered blind for over 10 years, and the charity really helped me, particularly early on, providing sort of practical advice and support.
We offer emotional support in the form of counselling, telephone support, equipment for sale and for loan, social groups so that people can meet other visually impaired people. We offer involvement in sports.
I get to do sports with like other blind children.
I like playing whistle cricket.
It gives me independent. There's always someone there if you need to talk to somebody.
I've really appreciated being able to join in and make friends.
If I had not had the help from the charity, I would not have been able to continue working.
The charity has helped me to own my disability and really get some more confidence, which is passed on to other areas of my life.
You can have a great life after sight loss. You've just got to change things around a little bit and be ready to ask for some help when you need it.
You can do a lot more than you think you can do, and you can be independent and take a full part in life generally.
Okay, so you got to see a little bit of Guy there anyway. Just to sum up, there's a promo video we had made a couple of years ago, thanks to Morgan Optometry, who sponsored that. We got to sort of showcase some of the work we've been doing, and those were clients who were talking there, and a bit of text at the end, which we'll talk about later anyway, on how you can support OAB. So we're going to show now you a little bit of fun. This is just something I like to put on just to show you a little bit how the eyes work, and there are going to be some optical illusions coming up on the screen, which show you what vision can do, really. So on the screen, I hope this doesn't make you feel sick, but there's sort of a swirls, and for some people this should appear that the actual circle is moving. So it's a little bit strange. This one is one I quite like. It's a mug with a pattern which makes it look like the mug has an indent in it. So the way the pattern's designed, it actually looks like there's a big dent in the mug. Now this one is whether it's a duck or a rabbit. So depending on the angle you look, And you see these quite often come up every now and again. And it's really just to showcase how the brain and the eyes work together and how they can actually sort of manipulate what you see. Now here we have, is it a beautiful woman or an old lady? So here if you look at it, took me a while to get this one originally, had to have it pointed out to me. It's an old lady with a very large nose or a beautiful woman looking the other way. So again, it's all perspective and your eyes and how they are reacting and how they're acting with the brain. Okay, and here we go. These are very common ones, sort of continuous staircase and the shapes there, so continuous shapes. Okay, so we're going to talk now about what visual impairment is. And visual impairment is defined really as an inability to see well, even with glasses or contact lenses. So even if somebody's had their vision corrected and they can still see okay, they can still see down a particular area on the eye chart, that's not necessarily classed as visual impairment, it's just corrected vision. And going forward, there's two actual sort of recognised forms of visual impairment in terms of registration. So you have severely sight impaired, which in old money is we call blind, and sight impaired, which is partially sighted. So there are actually also many people who choose not to be registered, or who the registration hasn't actually been picked up for whatever reason. So there's a lot of people who aren't registered within this category. So we'll show you some figures a bit later. But we talk about people who are partially sighted or blind or sight impaired, severely sight impaired. And that, again, we'll talk a bit about later, but usually somebody's registered, and that's done by the ophthalmologist, the eye doctor at the eye hospital, and use a couple of different methods, criteria to assess that. Okay, so we're going to look at some effects of visual impairment now, and how that can affect somebody's vision. So this is a standard picture. This is actually St Michael's Street, I think, in Oxford. It is, yeah. So this is St Michael's Street in Oxford. As you can see there in the image, you've got all sorts of things going on the street. Bit of parking on the side, an A board, a person cycling, a couple of people walking, and a lamppost or a sign. So, which we'll see kind of in a minute disappear. So we're looking now at peripheral vision loss. Now this, a lot of people call it tunnel vision. So we're going through here, mild, medium, and then the next one I'm going to show you is the most severe. So that's, a lot of people describe that as like looking for a straw. You can sort of simulate it if you hold your hands over your eyes and just sort of scrunch up your fingers and sort of make a sort of straw or a tunnel effect. Kind of give you an idea personally if you want to try that at home. Unfortunately, we don't have any specs for you to try, but you can kind of get an idea there. And again, this is just an idea. So the difficulty with a simulation or with pictures like this is that actually what we've done is we've blacked out and blurred the edges, whereas somebody who would lose their vision like this generally wouldn't actually see a black outline like that. It's actually missing vision, and missing vision could be that it's just not there. They just don't realize. So many people have gone to sort of a very severe point without actually noticing that they have tunnel vision, because it doesn't come necessarily like a black cloud sweeping through. What can cause this? So a couple of things can cause this generally. So glaucoma, a lot of you probably heard of glaucoma, can cause, doesn't always, but can cause tunnel vision by damage to the optic nerve, and a condition called retinitis pigmentosa, which is a genetic condition, generally sort of onset in sort of teenage times, so it sort of picked up that sort of age, and that can deteriorate. That can deteriorate to total vision loss. Now, what are the challenges? So challenges with this, if you imagine having to walk around, see your mobility, so seeing curbs, lampposts, things like that, and being able to see people coming from the side. So people could just appear. This is really common with people with tunnel vision. Somebody just appears out the side and you don't realise they're there. Or, unfortunately, very dangerously, somebody could be driving and a car just appears without realising, and could be in an accident. You know, it might not be picked up until that sort of point. It's been known to be picked up when somebody's been in an accident. So objects appearing out the side. What's not so challenging? I say not so challenging. It's not, you know, easy, but things like recognising faces. So direct on, obviously, reading, so reading print. And detailed work and colour vision. So with your central vision, I'll show you a sort of cross section of the eye in a bit, but your central vision is where all your detailed work is done. So actually reading, writing, recognising faces, anything detailed, you can actually do with that central bit of vision. And it can be quite confusing for general public, because somebody with tunnel vision like this would actually need to use a long cane, potentially a guide dog or another mobility aid. And it's been known somebody might use their cane, need to find, say, the entrance to a train, get on the train, find their seat with the cane, sit down, and then open up a newspaper and start reading. And a lot of people in the public find that absolutely outrageous, and think that they're a fraud or they're cheating the system, where actually the likelihood is they have tunnel vision and they can actually read small print very well. And some people with tunnel vision actually use something called a minifier, where they'd actually make the text smaller. So not a magnifier, a minifier, make it smaller to fit in that central bit of vision loss. We're going to move on now to central vision loss. So we're back here with the standard vision. And here we're going to start to see a clouding appear right in the center of the image, so right in the street center here. So if I keep going, so that cyclist in the middle has completely disappeared now, and the faces of the people on the left, or the people on the left have sort of disappeared. And then going to severe now, where we can only really see a few objects around the outside of the person's vision. So they might be able to pick up the lamppost there and the curb, but anything in the center has completely gone, and that's a very severe form. And that so central vision loss caused predominantly by age-related macular degeneration, so AMD, and that's in a lot of older people. So it's about 1 in 5 over 75 have vision losses generally caused by macular degeneration. There are other genetic conditions, so Stargardt's is a sort of form of macular degeneration, and cone rod dystrophy, which has a sort of very similar effect to central vision loss like this. Challenges again, so this time we're sort of looking at the reverse of what we were talking about earlier with tunnel vision loss, peripheral vision loss. Recognising faces. So this is really common. This is actually very upsetting for a lot of people when they lose their vision. You imagine you've been able to see your partner's face for years, and that sort of slowly disappears, or your children, your grandchildren. Actually been able to recognise people in the street. So this is really common. Oh, I waved at you earlier. Why didn't you say hello? And probably likely as they had no idea who you were. So recognising faces is a real challenge. Reading print. So if you imagine even large print within that central vision there might not be possible. Detailed work and colour vision. So threading a needle, anything sort of detailed, recognising colours can be quite a challenge with your central vision. Not so challenging. So again, mobility. I say not so challenging, it's still a challenge, but it might not be the most predominant issue for this particular person. So lampposts, might be able to see the lampposts out the corner of your eye, seeing the curbs, being able to find the door frames, the door handles from the corner of your eye, and seeing objects to the sides. So another common thing we get when people come to see us is they come with their family members, and sometimes they take us aside and they say phrases like, oh, we're not sure if mother's vision is actually too bad. The other day she saw a £1 coin on the floor, from 10 feet away. She can't be that bad, can she? And actually, she's probably seeing it out the corner of her eye, being able to look and see an object, but what would happen is she would see the coin out the corner of the eye, and then when she goes to actually look at it and pick it up, it disappears. So that is a really common issue, and again, people keep thinking that it's they're exaggerating their vision loss. Well, actually, the eyes are far more complicated than that. It is how things work with sort of central vision loss. Again, how we've displayed it here is a cloud or blurring in the center. That's not always necessarily like that. It could be that the vision has just disappeared. So if you imagine taking a photo and splicing the center out of it and then joining it together again, and what effect you would have, it's a bit like that. You've just taken vision out the center. So another common phrase we get people saying is they see like a kink in the lamppost or a wobble, or the lines are wavy, and that's because that missing vision just isn't there, and the brain is seeing two sort of images joined together, so it kind of creates a wavy effect. So again, it's always hard to describe these sort of things because eyes and brain are very complex, but this is a sort of good example of how it will look. Okay, so we're going to move on now to cloudy vision. So back to the standard view here of St Michael's Street. And then we're going to move now to, so we've got mild here, so just a little bit blurry, moderate. So things are starting to look a bit cloudy, not so clear. And then we go to severe here. So things are sort of very washed out. People describe that as being washed out. So if you can see on the sign up here on the road is obviously unreadable. You can see it's there, but you just can't see what it is. You can't see the detail. You can kind of work out that people are around, but again, you wouldn't be able to tell necessarily who they are. And the cause of this, the biggest cause of this is cataracts. So very common cataracts can be dealt with, not always, but can be dealt with pretty quickly. I think it's one of the most common procedures in the UK under the NHS. Certainly high up there. They're doing, hundreds of thousands a year of these cataract operations, and I think it's actually the #1 cause of sight loss worldwide. So in the UK, in the West, we're very lucky. These procedures, very straightforward, quite quick to do, done within half an hour, go home, a few days of rest, change your prescription, and you're back up and running again. So it's quite sort of straightforward, but say it's not always easy to do. If there are other underlying conditions, might not be able to do the cataract operation. Occasionally they go wrong, does happen, so it can leave people with permanent vision loss. But the biggest challenges of this is glare. So if you imagine the light now being scattered on the back of the eye, causing a lot of issues with glare, light sensitivity, ability to read. Obviously, we can see they're going to be very challenging to read. Detail work. So like we said, seeing anything in detail close up can be really challenging. Not so challenging, I put mobility. I mean, if you let a cataract keep growing, then it will sort of turn into a complete whiteout. So even mobility would be a challenge. But at a stage like this, your curbs, your door frames can be detectable up close, but it's still hard. It's still hard to do. So again, does also depend. A cataract will also generally, so it will happen for older age. So people who are older, cataract will appear. Also, if you've had eye trauma or eye surgery, if you've had any eye surgery, you're very likely to have a cataract appear on your in your lens. So it can affect a lot of people, and it's, like I said, it's not always dealt with straight away. And actually, at the moment, as operations are being postponed and cancelled, put on hold, there will be a lot of people at the moment who actually have sort of quite severe vision loss because of cataracts, because it just can't be dealt with so easily. Okay, so we're now going to look at patchy vision. So again, here we're back to St Michael Street, just standard view. And we're going to start appearing here. So what's happening is we're sort of getting some black splodges on the vision, so in different places. We're hit to moderate, so we can still see a little bit in the centre there, see a bit around us to the right, a few patches to the left, and then this is more severe. So we've got a lot of patches, a lot of missing vision, and again I think the people have disappeared on there, the signs disappeared. So what causes this? Diabetic retinopathy is the main cause of sort of patchy vision. Eye trauma, retinal surgery, retinal detachments, anything where you've lasered the retina in any way causes damage. So any trauma to the retina, which is the back of the eye, it's a light sensitive part of the back of the eye, can cause missing vision like this, patches. Again, it's not always black splodges. It could be missing, it could be white, it could be just not there. So this is just a kind of demonstration of that and what it will look like. Challenging and not so challenging, we've put on here all of the above, just depending on where the patches are. So if they're on the peripheral vision, so generally when they're doing laser, they try to laser the retina to the sides of the vision to preserve that central vision, but that's not always possible. So we've got here, depends on where the patches are. And for diabetic retinopathy, these patches are appearing because of bleeds in the retina and then lasering, so blasting the retina and having to seal those bleeds up. Yeah, and it can cause a sort of patchy vision just like this. And again, if somebody keeps having vision loss, the patches can grow and grow to the point where they have maybe just a little bit of light perception, but not much. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the eye earlier. We've put on the screen here a cross section of the eye. Now, I'm not a medical expert, so if there are any medical experts out there, please forgive me. But we have here at the front, we've got the cornea, which is the sort of clear film on the eye, which sort of protects the eye actually, and that lets the light through. You've then got these two sort of, well, because it's a cross section, it looks like two. You've got the iris here, which can expand and contract. So when you talk about your eyes dilating, that's the iris going up, down, letting in more or less light. So if you go into a dark room, these will expand, dilate to let in more light into your eye. And then we have here the lens. So this is looks a bit like a rugby ball shape here, but it's like a lens shape. This lets the light through, and this angles the light onto the back of the eye. So when we talk about cataracts, this is where the cataracts are appearing. And like I said, a very simple procedure. They can actually come in, suck out the crystallized lens and put in a nice clear lens. And with technology nowadays, there's a lot they can do with these lenses, positioning of the lenses and types of lenses to actually really improve somebody's vision. And then we go through to the back of the eye, and this is actually the retina. So we've got here a layer, and this is a light sensitive tissue which receives the light and interprets that into a signal, which then goes through to the brain down here. We don't really need to know too much about this. It's just sort of interesting and helps you kind of understand some of these eye conditions a little bit more. And when we talk about macular degeneration, the macula is the actually the central part of the retina. So it's generally right here at the back, and that is where we do all our detailed vision with. So there are actually more cells in the macula, and that's why colour vision is better from the central vision, detailed vision is better with the central vision. And the further out on the retina you go, the less cells you have. So that's why you wouldn't really read with your peripheral vision, because there's just not enough cells there to help interpret that information. So yeah, there you go. There's a little bit of info on the eye. Okay, now one thing we like to always add when we're talking about visual impairment, and if you're working with people who have a visual impairment or you're meeting people who have a visual impairment, is something called Charles Bonnet syndrome, which is a long word, a long name, just to basically sum up visual hallucinations. And what this is really is when eye receives information, it sends it to the brain and the brain interprets that. Now, what's happening with Charles Bonnet syndrome and visual hallucinations is if you've had some sudden vision loss or even gradual vision loss and the brain is not receiving as many signals, the brain is saying, oh, hang on a minute, I haven't got much information here. So what it does is it starts relaying old footage almost. It's like a film, you know, relaying old images into your brain. So it could be anything. So some people will see pets, animals, people, objects. Sometimes can be quite scary. It can be anything. It can happen at any times. They often say it happens when people are more tired, or say staring at the TV, you know, not doing anything. You know, they're not focusing on anything. And it can come and go. For some people, they have it for years. For some people, they have it for a few hours, a few days, weeks, and it can happen sort of for short periods or longer periods during the day. And it could be very scary. I mean, the biggest reason it could be quite scary is, you know, what do you think, obviously, when you think about hallucinations, the family or friends are going to instantly think dementia or memory loss. They're going to think that the person isn't coping in that sort of way. And actually, it's a very common phenomenon which happens to a lot of people who have a visual impairment. So that's why we always talk about it. There's nothing you can do about it. The best thing you can do is actually talk about it and talk to others who have had it and find out a bit more information about it. And it can help you cope with this information, with this hallucinations, which, like I said, can be very distressful. So if anybody ever says to you, I've seen these things, worth explaining, you know, we can sort out some information to hand to the family, to hand to the person, worth explaining. Also, it's also worth mentioning to somebody if they have a visual impairment and you're working with them, it's worth just saying, oh, do you ever see anything? Do you ever see any objects? Because they're not really going to say anything until they're asked, generally. But worth talking about. So we're going to bombard you with a few facts and figures. Everybody likes good statistic. So in the UK, 2 million people are living with sight loss. Every day, 250 people start to lose their sight. And in Oxfordshire, it's about it's just over 22,000 now. I think they're estimating, but that was a figure when I put this together. 21,900 people living in Oxfordshire who have form of sight loss. And this is due to an ageing population, as you see in the next part. 1 in 5 people over the age of 75 are living with sight loss, 1 in 2 people over the age of 90. So if you are working with anybody over the age of 75, it's likely you're going to be working with people who have some form of visual impairment, whether that's mild or severe. They have some form of visual impairment. They might not even recognise the fact that they have a visual impairment. You know, often, and in the past, we used to talk about, oh, Granny just has bad eyesight. 350,000 registered as sight impaired and severely sight impaired. So that's blind and partially sight and blind. And I've put here about 4 to 5% have total vision loss, so no light perception. It's a little hard one to gauge, but it's a very small number of people see nothing at all. So when we're talking about people using mobility aids, canes, guide dogs, a lot of people will actually have some remaining vision. And the reason we like to talk about that is because the misconception is somebody sees nothing, you know, somebody who has a cane can see nothing at all. And that is totally not true. So, you know, it's likely that they might have some form of vision. Might not be that useful, but they might still have some form of vision there. And again, it's, you know, you shouldn't really make assumptions, as we'll look at later when we talk about communication language. It's never to make these assumptions of what people can or can't see. Around 25,000 children are registered So again, whether that's from birth or onset at a very early age, and over half of the children who are registered have another disability, and sometimes that the visual impairment is actually lesser of the issue, depending on the disability. So 27% of working age people registered are in employment. I want to just say it's probably gone down now due to everything that's going on. So 27% of working age people. So that's very few working age people who are visually impaired have a job. And this is, again, one of our aims when we're working with people of that sort of age is to give them skills, give them confidence to get out there, get into work. There's a lot of barriers, and again, things we work with companies, we work with creating awareness in employment. Half of all sight loss is avoidable. So the main things there, we've actually done a video very recently. If you go over to our YouTube channel, we did a Ask the Expert questions with an ophthalmologist from the Oxford Eye Hospital. Really interesting. Talked a little bit about eye health. It's all the general things. Obviously not smoking, not drinking excessively, and having a balanced diet can really help. And getting your eyes tested regularly. So we're always banging on about that, getting your eyes tested on a regular basis. And they say sort of every 2 years is a very good one, unless you have another condition or reason you need to get them checked more often. The most common cause of sight loss in the UK is age-related macular degeneration, as we showed you in the sort of stats earlier. So we're mainly dealing with older people. Only 15 to 20,000 people use Braille in the UK. Just a quick note on that, Braille is certainly not dead or dying or going out the window. It's a small number because of the way we learn and the way sight loss is really. Most people who learn Braille are of a young age, so either at school age or in education. In fact, one of my colleagues, Nathan, who is in his 30s, just had to check then, in his 30s, he's learned Braille quite recently, and he wrote a blog on our website. It's quite interesting. It's a lot more challenging as an older person, but it's doable. But a lot of Braille now is used through technology. So technology hasn't replaced Braille, speech hasn't replaced Braille. We'll look at that later, but it's kind of using that technology to enhance that experience. And there are about 4,800 working guide dog partnerships in the UK. That probably fluctuates quite a lot, that number, but around that figure. And we'll look at guide dogs in a little bit.